The metal walls of the prison ship Judgment's Edge hummed with quiet power as it moved through the darkness of space. Captain Taman walked slowly down the main corridor, his boots making soft sounds on the floor. He was tall for his species, with blue skin and forearms that marked him as one of the Vorthak people. Today he felt worried. In the deepest part of his ship, locked behind 3 different force fields and enough metal to stop a tank, sat the most dangerous prisoner the Galactic Council had ever captured. A human named Kiwu Taman stopped at the heavy door that led to the prison section. 2 guards stood there, both looking nervous. One was Haiwan, the ship's security chief. She was 8 feet tall with hard shell-like skin and 6 legs like a giant insect. Her people, the Chitauri, were known as some of the best fighters in the galaxy, but even she seemed afraid. "How is the prisoner?" Taman asked. "Still not talking, sir," Haiwan replied. Her voice made a clicking sound when she spoke. "He hasn't said one word since we put him in there 3 days ago. Barely drinks water, won't eat anything, and he just sits there?" "Yes, sir. Just stares straight ahead. It's unsettling." Taman nodded and looked through the small window in the door. Inside the cell, Kiwu sat on a simple metal bench. His hands were locked in energy cuffs that glowed blue. These cuffs were strong enough to hold a charging rhino beast, but somehow they looked too big on the human's thin wrists. The human was not what Taman had expected. Kiwu was average height for his species, maybe 5.5 feet tall. His black hair was messy and he had a few days of beard growth. His clothes were torn and dirty. He looked like any other human you might see in a spaceport, but there was something in his eyes. When Kiwu looked up for just a moment, Taman saw something that made his blood run cold. The eyes were tired, very, very tired, but underneath that tiredness was something else. Something that reminded Taman of a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. "Show me his file again," Taman said. Haiwan handed him a data pad. The information on it was hard to believe, even though it came from Council intelligence. Subject: Kaiwu, human age, unknown home, Earth crimes, destruction of 3 Council patrol ships, murder of 47 Council soldiers, terrorism, interference with official Council business. The details were even more shocking. Kiwu had been found defending a ship full of refugees. When Council forces arrived to move the refugees to what they called relocation camps, Kiwu fought back. Alone. He destroyed the first patrol ship by somehow getting inside it and setting off its own weapons. The second ship he rammed with a small fighter craft, surviving the crash that should have killed him. The third ship he boarded after floating through space for 6 minutes without a proper suit. The report said he killed 47 trained soldiers, using whatever he could find as weapons. Pieces of metal, tools, even broken glass. He fought for 12 hours straight without stopping. What made it even stranger was that he wasn't fighting for his own people. The refugees were Cathani, a species that looked like large cats. Most humans had never even seen a Cathani before, but Kiwu fought like his own family was on that ship. "Captain," came a voice from behind him. Taman turned to see So Young, the ship's communications officer. She was a Mindari, one of the few species that could read minds. Her people were thin and pale with large eyes that seemed to see everything. "Yes, So Young. I tried to read the human's thoughts, sir. I thought it might help us understand him better." "And?" So Young's face went white. "It hurt, sir. His mind. It's like trying to look into a star. So much pain and anger, but controlled. Very controlled. I've never felt anything like it." Taman looked back at Kiwu through the window. The human sat perfectly still like a statue, but now Taman wondered what was going on inside that quiet mind. "Sir," said Donghyun, the ship's navigator. He was one of the Kindai people, tall and thin with silver skin. "We just got a message from Council High Command." "What do they want?" "New orders about the prisoner, sir. They want him executed as soon as we reach Kethmaran. No trial, no questions, just finished." The corridor became very quiet. Even in the Galactic Council, it was rare to execute someone without a trial. Taman read the message himself. The orders came from the highest levels of government. "Why are they so afraid of one human?" asked Boram, the ship's doctor. She was one of the few species that looked similar to humans, though her skin was green and she had no hair. "I've seen his medical scans. He's just a normal human. Nothing special about his body." "Maybe that's what makes him dangerous," Haiwan said. "He's not special, but he did impossible things." Taman walked closer to the cell door, Kiwoo was still sitting quietly, but now his head was turned slightly toward the door. Could he hear them talking? Human hearing wasn't supposed to be that good. Dr. Boram, Taemin said, I want you to do a complete medical scan on the prisoner. Find out everything you can. Yes, sir. Hey-1, double the guards on this section. I want sensors watching him every second. Already done, sir. So Young, try to contact the refugee ship Kiwoo was defending. Find out what happened to those people. So Young's face became sad. I already tried, sir. The ship's records were classified by Council Intelligence. All I could find out was that the refugees were moved to a secure location for processing. Something about the way she said, secure location, made Taemin feel sick. He had heard those words before, usually when the council wanted to make people disappear quietly. The ship's computer made a soft sound. Captain, came the voice of Jin'e, the ship's AI. We will reach Kethmaran in 18 hours. 18 hours until they had to hand Kiwoo over for execution. Taemin looked at the human one more time. Kiwoo was staring straight ahead again, but something had changed. There was a very small smile on his face. Sir, Wu Jin called from the engineering section. He was a member of the Silicon Brotherhood, a species that was part machine and part organic. I'm getting some strange readings from the prisoner's cell. What kind of readings? Energy patterns I don't recognize. It's very faint, but it's there. Almost like he's broadcasting something. Taemin felt cold. Broadcasting what? I don't know, sir. The signal is encrypted with something I've never seen before, but it's definitely going out into space. In his cell, Kiwoo continued to sit quietly. He had not moved in hours. He had not spoken in days, but deep in his eyes something was waiting, something patient and terrible and very, very angry. The ship continued its journey toward Kethmaran, carrying its silent prisoner toward what everyone thought would be his execution. But in the darkness of space around them, things were beginning to move. Things that had been waiting for a signal, the signal that Kiwoo had been sending since the moment they captured him. Dong-hyun woke up screaming. The Kindai navigator sat up in his bed, sweat covering his silver skin. The dream had been so real. Burning worlds, ships exploding in silence, and through it all a voice whispering words he couldn't understand. This was the third night in a row. Ever since the human came aboard, Dong-hyun's dreams had been filled with fire and death. His people were known for seeing the future in their dreams, but these visions felt different, stronger, more real. He got dressed and walked to the medical bay. Dr. Boram was there, working late as usual. She looked up when he entered. More bad dreams? She asked. Dong-hyun nodded. Getting worse. I see whole fleets burning, and always that voice whispering, what does it say? I can't make out the words, but it sounds angry, very angry. Boram set down her medical scanner and looked at him with concern. Maybe you should stay away from the prisoner section for a while. Sometimes being near certain individuals can affect sensitive species like yours. Maybe. Dong-hyun sat down heavily. What did you find in your medical scans of the human? Boram pulled up her data on the main screen. That's what's strange. His body shows signs of severe stress and exhaustion, like he hasn't slept properly in months. But there's something else. She pointed to a section of the scan. These are traces of exotic radiation, the kind you only get from traveling through hyperspace many times in a short period. How many times? If I'm reading this right, he's been to at least 20 different star systems in the past 2 years. Maybe more. Dong-hyun frowned. That's impossible. No one travels that much unless they're a merchant or a council official. That's what I thought. So I checked the galactic travel records. Boram's green face became pale. Kiwoo has been present at 17 different incidents involving refugee ships. Always the same pattern. Refugees trying to escape dying worlds, council forces arriving to relocate them, and Kiwoo showing up to fight. 17 times? Why didn't the council stop him sooner? Because they didn't know it was the same person. He used different names, different identification. It was only when they ran genetic scans after his capture that they realized one human had been causing problems across the entire galaxy. Dong-hyun stood up and walked to the window. Outside, stars moved slowly past as the ship traveled through hyperspace. Doctor, what happens to refugees after they're relocated? Boram was quiet for a long time. I don't know. The records are classified above my clearance level. but her voice suggested she suspected something terrible. "I want to show you something else," Boram said. She brought up another scan. "These are traces of minerals in his blood. Very specific minerals that only come from one place." "Where?" "Earth. Specifically from a place called the Memorial of the Lost. It's where humans carve the names of extinct species into stone." Dong-hyun felt cold. He's been carrying pieces of a memorial with him. It looks that way. The traces are embedded under his skin like he pressed his hands against the stone many times. Boram looked at the data again. There are 63 different mineral traces, one for each extinct species listed on the memorial. The implications hit Dong-hyun like a physical blow. 63 extinct species, 17 refugee incidents. Doctor, what if those refugees didn't just disappear from the records? Before Boram could answer, the ship's communication system came alive. Jin's voice filled the medical bay. "All senior officers to the bridge immediately. We're receiving emergency signals from across the galaxy." Dong-hyun and Boram rushed to the bridge. Captain Taemin was already there, along with Haiwan and the other officers. The main screen showed a map of the galaxy with red warning lights flashing everywhere. "What's happening?" Taemin asked. "Council fleets are going dark," reported So-young from her communication station. "Starting about 6 hours ago, we began losing contact with ships and bases across the galaxy." "Enemy attack?" "That's just it, sir. There's no sign of any enemy. The ships just stop responding. Their last transmissions are always the same. They report everything normal, then silence." Wu Jin looked up from his engineering station. "I'm detecting massive subspace distortions. Whatever's happening, it's happening fast. At this rate, the entire Council Navy will be offline within 3 days. "Sir," So-young said, her voice shaking. "I'm getting a transmission from Council High Command on Earth." The screen changed to show a Vorthak admiral, one of Taemin's own people, but the admiral looked terrified. "All ships, this is Admiral Kektar. We are experiencing coordinated attacks on Council installations throughout the galaxy. The attackers are unknown. No ships have been detected. Repeat, we cannot identify the attackers." The transmission cut to static. "Sir," Haiwan said, "should we change course? Return to help defend Council space?" Taemin was about to answer when Dong-hyun grabbed his arm. "Captain, I need to tell you about my dreams." Quickly, Dong-hyun explained his visions of burning fleets and the whispering voice. As he spoke, he saw the faces around him grow pale. "And you think this is connected to our prisoner?" Taemin asked. "I don't know, but the timing seems strange." Boram stepped forward. "Captain, there's something else. I found evidence that Kiwoo has been carrying a small device. It's been transmitting a signal since we captured him." "What kind of signal?" "Encrypted. But it's definitely going somewhere." Taemin looked at the tactical display showing Council fleets going dark across the galaxy. Then he looked toward the prisoner section. "I want to talk to him," he said. "Sir, that might not be safe," Haiwan warned. "I don't think we have a choice." They went down to the prisoner section together. Kiwoo was sitting in exactly the same position as before. He hadn't moved in hours. But when Taemin approached the cell, the human looked up. For the first time since his capture, Kiwoo's eyes focused on something other than the wall. He looked directly at Taemin, and the captain felt like he was being examined by something very intelligent and very dangerous. "Kiwoo," Taemin said, "we know you've been sending signals. We know about the attacks on Council forces. What's happening out there?" Kiwoo continued to stare at him. His expression didn't change, but slowly, very slowly, he smiled. It was not a nice smile. "The Council fleets," Taemin continued. "Are your people attacking them?" Still no answer. But Kiwoo's smile grew a little wider. "Those refugees you were protecting, what happened to them?" For just a moment, something flickered in Kiwoo's eyes. Pain. Deep, terrible pain. But then it was gone, replaced by that cold, patient stare. Dong-hyun stepped closer to the cell. "In my dreams, I hear a voice. Is that you?" Kiwoo turned to look at the navigator. For several seconds, they stared at each other. Then Kiwoo did something unexpected. He nodded. "What are you saying in my dreams?" Dong-hyun asked. Kiwoo's mouth moved, but no sound came out. He was forming words, but speaking so quietly that no one could hear him. Dong-hyun pressed closer to the force field. "I can't hear you." Kiwoo leaned forward slightly. His lips moved again, and this time Dong-hyun could just barely make out the words. "You're all dead." The navigator stepped back like he'd been hit. "What did he say?" Taemin demanded, But before Dong Hyun could answer, the ship's alarms began to sound. Jinye's voice filled the corridor. Captain, to the bridge immediately. We have contacts approaching. Multiple contacts. They rushed back to the bridge. The tactical display showed dozens of ships appearing out of hyperspace around them. Ships unlike anything in the galactic database. They were sleek and dark, moving with a coordination that seemed impossible. Human ships, Wu Jin whispered, and at that moment, everyone on the bridge realized the truth. Ki Wu hadn't been captured at all. He had allowed himself to be taken. He had been broadcasting their location to his own people the entire time. In his cell, Ki Wu continued to smile. The human ships surrounded the Judgment's Edge like wolves around a wounded animal. On the bridge, Captain Taemin stared at the tactical display in disbelief. There were 37 vessels, each one moving with perfect coordination. No wasted motion, no unnecessary communication chatter. They simply appeared and took positions like they had practiced this 1,000 times. Sir, they're not responding to our hails, So Young reported from her communication station. Her hands were shaking as she worked. Keep trying, Taemin ordered. He turned to his tactical officer. Weapon status? All systems ready, sir, but... The officer hesitated, but what? Those ships aren't showing up properly on our sensors. I can see them with my eyes, but our targeting systems can't lock onto them. It's like they're not really there. Wu Jin looked up from his engineering console. Captain, I'm reading energy signatures I've never seen before. Their power sources are completely unknown to our database. Haewon moved closer to Taemin. Sir, should we prepare for boarding action? Before Taemin could answer, the main communications channel crackled to life. A human voice spoke, calm and professional. Council vessel, Judgment's Edge, this is Admiral Hyunwoo of the Human Defense Fleet. You are currently holding one of our operatives. Prepare for immediate boarding and prisoner transfer. Taemin stepped forward. This is Captain Taemin. The prisoner is under council jurisdiction. We cannot release him without proper authorization. There was a pause. When the human admiral spoke again, his voice had not changed at all. Still calm, still professional. Somehow that made it more frightening. Captain Taemin, your authorization is noted and rejected. You have 30 seconds to lower your shields and disable your weapons. And if we refuse, then we will lower them for you. Taemin looked around his bridge. His crew was well-trained and experienced. They had fought pirates and rebels across the galaxy, but something about these humans made even his bravest officers look afraid. Sir, Dong Hyun whispered. In my dreams I saw this moment. If we fight them, we all die. We have our orders, Taemin said firmly. We cannot simply hand over a prisoner. 15 seconds, came the Admiral's voice. Haewon moved to the weapons console. Sir, give me the order and I'll show these humans what Chitauri warriors can do. Taemin was about to speak when every light on the bridge went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in red light. Jinne's voice came through the speakers, but it sounded different. Confused. Captain, all ship systems are operating normally, but I'm reading massive power fluctuations throughout the ship. It's like something is rewriting my programming from the outside. Impossible, Wu Jin said. Our systems are isolated. No one can access them remotely. The main screen flickered and came back on. Instead of showing space outside, it now displayed the inside of one of the human ships. A man in a simple uniform stood there. He was tall for a human with gray hair and tired eyes. This had to be Admiral Hyunwoo. Captain Taemin, the Admiral said. Your weapons are now offline. Your shields are down. Your navigation is under our control. Please prepare for boarding. How did you do that? Wu Jin demanded. The Admiral looked directly at him. Your species builds very logical machines, Engineer Wu Jin. Logic follows rules. We have learned to speak to your machines in their own language. The fact that he knew Wu Jin's name made everyone on the bridge very uncomfortable. Dr. Boram, the Admiral continued, looking at someone off-screen. We are aware of your medical scans of our operative. Your findings will be useful in our upcoming testimony before the Galactic Assembly. Boram stepped back in shock. How do you know about my scans? Navigator Dong Hyun, the Admiral said, turning his attention to the Kindai. Your dreams are not dreams. They are visions of what must come to pass. Your people's gift for seeing the future has been very helpful to us. Dong Hyun sank into his chair. You've been using me. The visions you sent, they were to prepare me for this moment. Communications Officer So Young, the Admiral continued. Your attempts to read our operative's mind have taught us much about Mindari telepathic abilities. Thank you for that information. So Young covered her face with her hands. We've been studied, like insects under glass. Security Chief Heywan, the Admiral said, his voice becoming slightly harder. Your weapons will not be necessary. We are not here to harm anyone who has not earned harm. On the screen they could see human soldiers moving behind the Admiral. They were dressed in dark armor that seemed to absorb light. Their faces were hidden behind visors that reflected like mirrors. Captain Taemin, the Admiral said finally, you have treated our operative with professional courtesy. You have not tortured him or abused him. This will be remembered in your favor. What do you want? Taemin asked. Justice, came the simple reply. The boarding began without warning. One moment the corridors were empty, the next they were full of human soldiers. But it wasn't like any military action Taemin had ever seen. The humans moved through the ship like smoke, appearing and disappearing. They didn't break down doors or blast through walls. Doors simply opened for them. Security systems shut themselves off as they approached. Heywan tried to organize resistance, but her weapons wouldn't fire. Her communication system wouldn't work. Even her emergency alarms had been silenced. How are they doing this? She demanded. They're not fighting the ship, Wu Jin said in wonder. They're talking to it. Every system on this vessel is cooperating with them. The humans reached the prisoner section in minutes. Captain Taemin and his senior officers followed, but they felt more like observers than participants. The human soldiers simply ignored them. At Kai Wu's cell, the energy barriers flickered and died. The metal doors slid open with a soft whisper. Ki Wu stood up slowly, the energy cuffs around his wrists falling away like they were made of paper. For the first time since his capture, Ki Wu spoke. His voice was quiet, but it carried clearly through the corridor. Status report, he said in perfect galactic standard. One of the soldiers stepped forward and removed his helmet. He was young for a human, maybe 25 years old with dark hair and serious eyes. All objectives completed, the soldier reported. 63 council extermination sites have been documented. Evidence has been gathered from 47 different worlds. 1,700 council officials have been identified as primary targets. And the witnesses? Selected and prepared. They will testify before the emergency session of the Galactic Assembly. Ki Wu nodded. Then he turned to look at Captain Taemin and his crew. When he spoke, his voice was filled with a sadness so deep it made hardened warriors want to cry. You want to know what happened to those refugees I was protecting? The ones your council forces took to relocation camps? No one answered, but everyone waited. They were murdered, Ki Wu said simply. All of them. Men, women, children. Shot and burned and forgotten, just like 62 other species before them. Dr. Boram gasped. 63 extinct species. The ones from the memorial. We tried to stop it peacefully, Ki Wu continued. For 200 years, humanity petitioned the council. We offered aid. We offered sanctuary. We begged you to stop the killings. He walked closer to the group of aliens. None of them could meet his eyes. Your leaders called us emotional. Primitive, they said this was the natural order. That weak species deserved to die. Ki Wu's voice became harder. So we decided to show you what happens when humans stop being emotional. What are you going to do? Taemin asked. Ki Wu looked at him for a long moment. You and your crew are witnesses now. You will live to tell others what you have seen. You will testify at the Galactic Assembly about what the Council has done. And those who gave the orders? Ki Wu's expression became very cold. They have been judged. Sentence will be carried out. Admiral Hyunwoo appeared in the corridor, flanked by more human soldiers. He looked at Ki Wu with obvious respect. Ready to go home? The Admiral asked. Not yet, Ki Wu replied. First, I have something to tell our witnesses. He turned back to the alien crew. When he spoke, his words seemed to echo in the metal corridors. You are witnesses to the end of one age and the beginning of another. The Galactic Council as you know it will fall within days, not because we will destroy it, but because the truth will destroy it. He walked toward Admiral Hyunwoo, then stopped and looked back. Those who killed innocents will answer for their crimes. Those who gave the orders will face justice, and those who stayed silent while children died. Ki Wu's voice dropped to a whisper, but somehow everyone heard him perfectly. You're all dead. The human fleet left as quietly as it had arrived. One moment they were there, surrounding the judgment's edge like silent guardians, the next they were gone. Captain Taemin stood on his bridge looking out at empty space, wondering if the last few hours had really happened. But the evidence was everywhere. Every computer system on the ship had been touched by the humans. Every file had been copied. Every secret the Council had trusted them to keep was now in human hands. "Sir," So-Young said from her communication station, "we're receiving transmissions on every frequency. The humans are broadcasting something across the entire galaxy." "Put it on screen," Taemin ordered. The main display filled with documents, official Council orders, video recordings, communication logs, all of it showing the same horrible truth. For over 2 centuries, the Galactic Council had been systematically murdering entire species. The first document showed orders from the Council High Command to relocate the Kethani refugees. The destination was listed as Colony World 7, but the second document revealed that Colony World 7 didn't exist. It was code for an extermination facility. Video files showed Council soldiers herding families into transport ships. Other videos showed what happened when those ships reached their real destination. Mass graves on remote worlds, burning cities, children crying for parents who would never come home. "This can't be real," Haywan whispered, but Dr. Boram was checking the data against her medical files. The genetic markers match. These are the refugees Kiwu was trying to protect. And they're all dead. More files appeared on the screen. Species after species systematically eliminated. The Talvori, who were too peaceful to defend themselves. The Zenkari, who refused to join the Council's military. The Mekthar, whose homeworld had valuable minerals. Each extinction followed the same pattern. Council forces would arrive offering protection or relocation. The species would be loaded onto transport ships. Then they would disappear from all official records. 63 species, Donghyun said numbly. 63 entire peoples wiped out. Wu Jin looked up from his engineering station. "Captain, these broadcasts are going out on frequencies that can reach every inhabited world in the galaxy. Every ship, every space station, every government building. No one will be able to ignore this." As if to prove his point, the ship's communication system began receiving responses. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of messages from across the galaxy. "Captain," So-Young reported, "I'm getting emergency transmissions from Council member worlds. The Andrashi Republic is withdrawing from the Council. The Feltori Union is demanding immediate investigations. 3 different star systems are declaring independence." "Sir," Jin'e announced, "I'm detecting ships throughout the galaxy changing course. Council fleets are abandoning their posts. Some are returning to their home systems, others are. I'm not sure where they're going." The political structure that had held the galaxy together for 1,000 years was collapsing in real time. "We need to contact Council High Command." Taemin said, "Sir?" So-Young replied, "I've been trying." No response from Central Command. No response from any Council facilities. It's like they've all gone dark. On the screen, a new document appeared. This one showed the complete list of Council officials involved in the genocides. Admiral Kektar, who had sent them their execution orders, was near the top of the list. So were dozens of other high-ranking military officers and government leaders. "They're going to be arrested," Boram said. "All of them. By who?" Haywan asked. "The humans?" "No," came a new voice from the corridor. They turned to see Kiwu walking onto the bridge. He was no longer in prison clothes, but wearing a simple black uniform. 2 human soldiers flanked him, but they seemed more like an honor guard than captors. "The humans won't arrest anyone," Kiwu continued. "That would make this look like a conquest. Instead, each species will judge their own leaders. Each world will decide for itself what justice looks like." Taemin stepped forward. "How did you get back on our ship?" "I never left," Kiwu replied simply. "Someone needs to make sure you get to the Galactic Assembly safely. You're important witnesses. The Assembly still exists. What's left of it? 12 species have agreed to attend an emergency session. The others are too busy dealing with their own civil wars." Kiwu walked to the main display and gestured at the files still scrolling past. "This information has been broadcast to every world in the galaxy. But information alone isn't enough. People need to hear from witnesses. They need to know that real beings saw these crimes happen." "What exactly did we witness?" Taemin asked. "You saw that the refugee ship I was protecting was attacked by Council forces. You saw that I fought to defend innocent lives. You saw that the Council ordered my execution without trial." Kiwu turned to face them. "Most importantly, you saw that everything I did was in response to genocide. Dr. Boram stepped closer. Kiwu, how long have you been planning this? Personally, about 3 years. I was part of a human observation mission when I saw my first council extermination site. A world called Kethmalor, beautiful place, had cities that floated on clouds. His voice became distant. The council said the people there were economically unviable, so they killed them all and mined the planet for rare metals. But humanity as a whole? We've been gathering evidence for 2 centuries. Every time we tried to bring it to the council officially, we were told we didn't understand galactic politics, that sometimes hard choices had to be made. Kiwu's expression hardened, so we decided to make our own hard choice. So Young looked up from her station. Kaiwu, I tried to read your mind when you were in the cell. The pain I felt. How do you carry that? Practice, he replied. When you've seen 63 species die, you learn to live with pain. Sir, Wu Jin interrupted. I'm detecting a large fleet approaching. It's massive. Hundreds of ships. Council forces? Heiwan asked, reaching for her weapons. No, Kiwu said calmly. Representatives from the surviving member species. They're coming to escort us to the assembly. On the tactical display, ships from dozens of different species appeared. Andrashi cruisers, Feltori science vessels, Kindai exploration ships, even some species that Taemin had never seen before. They're all coming to hear our testimony, Donghyun said. Yes, and to decide what comes next. Kiwu looked out at the approaching fleet. The old council is dead. What replaces it will depend on whether the galaxy can learn from its mistakes. And if it can't? Taemin asked. Kiwu was quiet for a long moment. Then humanity will make sure the galaxy remembers why those 63 species died. We'll make sure it never happens. Again. The way he said it made everyone on the bridge very certain that they didn't want to see what humanity would do if the galaxy failed to learn its lesson. Captain, Taemin, came a transmission from the lead ship in the approaching fleet. This is Admiral Koravash of the Andrashi Republic. We request permission to escort your vessel to the emergency assembly session. Taemin looked at Kiwu, who nodded. Permission granted, Admiral. We'll follow your lead. As the massive fleet formed up around them, Taemin realized that they were no longer just transporting a prisoner. They were carrying the evidence that would reshape the galaxy. The weight of that responsibility felt heavier than the ship itself. Kiwu, he said quietly. What happens to people like me? Officers who followed orders without questioning them? Kiwu looked at him with those tired, sad eyes. That depends, Captain. Are you willing to help make sure this never happens again? Taemin thought about all the orders he had followed without question. All the times he had trusted that his superiors knew what was right. All the refugees whose faces he had never bothered to see. Yes, he said firmly. I am. Kiwu nodded. Then you'll live, and you'll help build something better. The fleet jumped into hyperspace, carrying its precious cargo toward a new future. Behind them, the old galaxy continued to tear itself apart as the truth spread like wildfire across the stars. The Galactic Assembly building on Kepler Station had never seen anything like this. For 1,000 years, it had been the center of council power, where representatives from hundreds of species made decisions that affected trillions of lives. Now, only 12 species remained in the emergency session, and the Great Hall felt empty and broken. Captain Taemin stood at the witness podium, looking out at the small crowd of aliens who had stayed to hear the truth. Many seats were empty. Some species had declared independence and left the council entirely. Others were fighting civil wars as their people learned what their governments had done in their name. Captain Taemin, said the session moderator, a tall Andrashi with silver skin and 4 arms. Please tell the assembly what you witnessed during the transport of the human prisoner. Taemin took a deep breath. Over the past week, he had given this testimony dozens of times to different groups. Each time, it became a little easier to say the words, but no less painful to remember the truth. The human Kiwu was brought aboard my ship as a prisoner accused of terrorism and murder. But during our journey, my medical officer discovered evidence that he had been present at 17 different refugee incidents across the galaxy. What kind of incidents? Asked a representative from the Feltori Union. Incidents where council forces relocated refugee populations to what we now know were extermination sites. Tae-min's voice remained steady, but his hands shook slightly. Kiwoo wasn't a terrorist, he was trying to save innocent lives. Dr. Boram stepped forward to the second podium. My medical scans showed that Kiwoo carried traces of minerals from the human memorial of the lost. This memorial contains the names of 63 extinct species that we now know were murdered by Council forces. The assembly hall was very quiet. Even the few remaining Council loyalists said nothing. Navigator Dong-hyun spoke next. During our journey, I experienced visions of burning fleets and a voice promising justice. I now know these visions came from Kiwoo himself, preparing me to witness what would happen. And what did happen? The moderator asked. Human forces appeared and rescued their operative. But they didn't attack us or harm anyone. Instead, they released evidence of Council crimes to the entire galaxy. The moderator gestured to the main display, which showed the current state of galactic civilization. Half the map was red, indicating regions in civil war or political chaos. Another quarter was yellow, showing areas that had declared independence from the Council. Only a small section remained green, representing worlds that still supported the old government. The result of this evidence release has been the collapse of the Galactic Council as we know it, the moderator continued. 17 Council officials have been arrested by their own species. 43 high-ranking military officers are in hiding. 3 former Council members have committed suicide rather than face trial. Admiral Kektar, who had sent the execution orders for Kiwoo, was among those arrested. He was currently in a Vorthak prison, awaiting trial for war crimes. But this assembly is not here to assign blame, the moderator said. We are here to decide what comes next. A new voice spoke from the back of the hall. May I address the assembly? Everyone turned to see Kiwoo walking down the central aisle. He was still wearing the simple black uniform, but now he carried himself differently. More formally, like a diplomat rather than a prisoner. The human requests permission to speak, the moderator announced. Are there any objections? Several representatives shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke against it. Permission granted. Kiwoo walked to the central podium where accused criminals usually stood during council trials. The irony was not lost on anyone present. Honored representatives, he began, I stand before you not as an enemy, but as someone who has seen what happens when good people stay silent while evil is done in their name. He gestured to the display showing the collapsed galaxy. This chaos is not what humanity wanted. We hoped that exposing the truth would lead to reform, not revolution, but we underestimated how deeply the corruption had spread. What do you propose? Asked the Andrashi moderator. A new beginning, a new alliance based on 3 simple principles. Kiwoo held up his hand, counting on his fingers. First, no species will ever again face extinction alone. Any threat to one member species becomes a threat to all. Second, every decision that affects member worlds must be made with full transparency. No more secret orders. No more classified genocides. Third, any species that attempts to exterminate another will face the combined military might of all member worlds. The assembly was quiet as they considered these words. And humanity's role in this new alliance? Asked a representative from the Kindai. Kiwoo's expression became very serious. We will be the guardians of the lost, the voice for those who cannot speak, and the sword that falls on anyone who tries to repeat the crimes of the old council. That sounds like a threat, said one of the few remaining council loyalists. It is, Kiwoo replied simply, but not to anyone who values innocent life. The debate that followed lasted for 3 days. Some species wanted humanity to be punished for destroying the old order. Others wanted them to take over completely. A few suggested that humans were too dangerous to be trusted with any authority at all. In the end, they reached a compromise. The new galactic alliance would be governed by a council of equals, with no single species holding permanent power. But humanity would hold a special position as guardians of memory, responsible for maintaining the memorial to extinct species and ensuring that their stories were never forgotten. Captain Tae-min was offered a position as the first director of Truth and Reconciliation. responsible for investigating past crimes and ensuring they were not repeated. He accepted, knowing that it would be hard work but necessary work. Dr. Boram became the Alliance's first chief medical investigator, developing new protocols for detecting signs of systematic oppression before they could lead to genocide. Navigator Dong Hyun used his prophetic abilities to establish an early warning system, watching for signs of future conflicts and injustices. The ceremony to establish the new alliance took place at the Human Memorial of the Lost on Earth. Representatives from 47 species attended, each bringing a stone from their homeworld to add to the memorial wall. Keiwu stood before the wall, his hand resting on the section that bore the names of the 63 extinct species. When he spoke, his words were broadcast across the galaxy. We gather here not to celebrate victory, but to remember loss. 63 species died while the galaxy stood by and did nothing. We cannot bring them back, but we can make sure they are never forgotten. He turned to face the assembled representatives. Today, we make a promise. To the Kethani children who died frightened and alone. To the Talvori artists whose songs will never be heard again. To the Zenkari philosophers whose wisdom was silenced forever. We promise that no other species will share their fate. We are the alliance of the living, but we serve in memory of the dead. Let every decision we make honor their sacrifice. Let every law we pass protect those who cannot protect themselves. Let every breath we take remind us that we are guardians now, and guardians do not sleep. Keiwu placed his hand on the memorial wall one more time. You are not forgotten, he whispered. You will never be forgotten. In the months that followed, the new alliance faced many challenges. Some worlds refused to join, preferring independence to cooperation. Pirates and warlords tried to take advantage of the chaos. A few former council species attempted to rebuild the old system in secret, but each time a threat emerged, the alliance responded with unity and purpose. The member species had learned that the price of silence was too high to pay. They had seen what happened when good people did nothing while evil flourished. And always, watching over them all, were the human guardians. They maintained the memorial to the lost. They investigated reports of oppression and injustice. They stood ready to act when action was needed. The galaxy was smaller now, broken into dozens of independent regions. But it was also more honest, more careful, more aware of the cost of looking away when innocent people suffered. On quiet nights when Keiwu stood alone before the memorial wall, he could almost hear the voices of the lost, not crying for vengeance, but whispering words of gratitude. They had not died in vain. Their sacrifice had taught the galaxy to remember, to care, to act, and in the end, that was the greatest victory of all. The human had stayed silent for days, but when he finally whispered, "You're all dead," he wasn't speaking to his captors. He was speaking to the old galaxy, the one that killed children and called it policy, the one that destroyed entire species and called it progress, the one that made good people complicit in evil and called it order. That galaxy was dead, and in its place, something better had been born.